The Grand Chamber was the largest room ever built by any living species. It stretched across an entire moon, and inside it, 4,000 seats rose in circles toward a ceiling made of light. Every seat held a delegate from a different world. Some breathed oxygen, some breathed methane, some did not breathe at all. But today, all of them were silent, because today they were voting on whether to kill a planet. Admiral Vorin stood at the center. He was tall, even for a Kelani, nearly 3 meters of dark shell and sharp limbs. His species looked like insects to human eyes, though no human had ever seen one. His voice was translated into 4,000 languages at once, and every word landed like a stone. "We have watched them for 200 years, he said. "When we first found them, they were splitting atoms and pointing weapons at each other. We expected them to destroy themselves. Every aggressive species does. That is the natural order. They did not destroy themselves." A murmur moved through the chamber. "Instead," Vorin continued, "they grew faster. They built machines that think. They left their planet. They reached their nearest star's outer planets in less than a generation. Their aggression index is 900 times the galactic average. Their technological growth rate has no match in our records. None in 4 billion years of recorded civilization." He let that number sit in the air. "The models are clear. Within 300 years, they will surpass every military force in the Concord. They do not yet have faster-than-light travel. They do not yet know we exist. This is our window. If we wait, we will not get another one." Delegate Pell sat in the far upper rows, his wet skin drying under the chamber lights. He was small, amphibian, and quiet. He had spent the last 40 years studying the species Vorin wanted to erase. He had listened to their music. He had read their poetry. He had watched a woman on a tiny blue planet hold a baby and sing it to sleep. And he had wept, though his species did not have a word for weeping. He raised his hand to speak. The chamber gave him 30 seconds. "They also create," Pell said softly. "They paint. They write stories. They build things not because they are useful, but because they are beautiful. Does that not matter?" Vorin's answer was immediate. "Beauty does not stop a war fleet." The vote was called. The question was simple. Should the Concord authorize the sterilization of Sol 3, the planet its inhabitants called Earth? Sterilization meant orbital bombardment. It meant the end of every human being, every forest, every ocean, every song ever written on that small blue world. 3,811 delegates voted yes. 189 voted no. Pell was one of the 189. It did not matter. Resolution 7701 passed. Earth was sentenced to die. The Ninth Fleet, 12,000 warships, would depart within the cycle. At faster-than-light speed, they would reach the human solar system in 90 Earth days. Vorin watched the vote tally and felt nothing but duty. He had saved the galaxy before. He would save it again. Far away, so far that light itself would take years to carry the news, a man named Tejo sat in a metal chair and stared at a screen full of stars. Outpost Hala was humanity's loneliest address. It sat past the orbit of Pluto, a small station bolted together from recycled spacecraft and stubbornness. Its job was to listen, to point every sensor outward and wait for something interesting. For 2 years, Tejo had heard nothing but cosmic background noise. He was 34 years old, a lieutenant commander in the Republic of Korea Space Command, and he missed his mother's cooking more than he would ever admit to anyone. His co-commander was Captain Yuna. She was an astrophysicist before she was a soldier, and she still thought like one, always asking why, always unsatisfied with easy answers. She had short hair, sharp eyes, and a habit of talking to herself when she was working through a problem. That night, she was talking to herself a lot. "That is not right," she muttered, pulling up a data feed for the 3rd time. "That should not be there." Tejo rolled his chair over. What have you got? Tachyon signatures, edge of the system. They appeared 6 hours ago, and they are moving. She looked at him. Tejo, nothing natural produces tachyon bursts in this pattern. This is organized. This is deliberate. He stared at the data. Lines of energy, pulsing in sequence, like a heartbeat. Coming closer. Standard procedure said to file a report. Send it to the regional command office. Wait for confirmation. Then escalate through channels. That process took weeks. Tejo looked at the screen. He looked at Yuna. He made a decision that would change the history of his species. He opened a direct channel to Earth's Global Defense Council, attached the raw data, and typed a single line beneath it. Something is watching us, and it just started moving closer. He sent it. Then he leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath. Yuna was still staring at the data. How many signatures? He asked. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, thousands, maybe more. I cannot get an exact count because they are overlapping. Thousands, Tejo repeated. Yes. He thought about his mother. He thought about the sky over his hometown, how it looked in autumn, how the mountains turned red and gold. He thought about all the people on Earth who were sleeping right now, who were eating dinner, who were arguing about small things, who had no idea that something vast and terrible was crossing the dark toward them. Then I guess, he said quietly, we had better not waste any time. 3 days later, 12,000 warships entered faster than light speed. They moved through the galaxy like a wave of cold light, and they carried with them the collected will of 4,000 civilizations, all of which had agreed on one simple truth. Earth had to die. They were about to learn that Earth had a different opinion. The message from Outpost Hala reached Earth on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, the world had changed. Director Sojun read the data 3 times before he believed it. He was 52 years old, a former naval strategist with gray hair and the kind of face that never showed surprise. But his hands trembled slightly as he set down the report. Thousands of signatures, moving in formation, moving toward Earth. He called an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. 12 hours later, every major government on the planet knew. 24 hours after that, every human being knew. The panic lasted 1 week. Then something happened that no one, not even Sojun, expected. The panic stopped. Not because people were no longer afraid, but because fear turned into something harder, something sharper. People stopped arguing about borders and politics and money. They looked up at the sky, and they understood that whatever was coming, it was coming for all of them. Sojun stood before the council and said 2 words that became humanity's answer to the stars. Project Bulwark. Every factory on Earth shifted production. Car plants began stamping out missile casings. Shipyards that built cargo vessels now built warships. Universities closed their regular classes and opened weapons laboratories. Farmers kept farming because armies needed food. Teachers kept teaching because children still needed hope. But everything else, everything, bent toward a single purpose: survival. In Daejeon, South Korea, a 29-year-old quantum physicist named Hana sat in a basement laboratory and stared at equations that should have been impossible. She had been studying tachyon particles for her doctoral thesis. It was supposed to be theoretical. Now, the military wanted her to turn theory into weapons. The alien fleet's faster-than-light signatures left a specific energy pattern. Hana could not build an FTL drive. That was decades away at least. But she could build something that would break one. A tachyon pulse disruptor. Fire it at an FTL-capable ship, and the ship would be ripped out of faster-than-light speed like a car hitting a wall. She worked 20-hour days. Her team of 11 slept in shifts on cots beside their equipment. Her hands shook from too much coffee and too little sleep. Every Sunday, she called her mother and told her she was working on a research project. Her mother said she sounded tired. Hana said she was fine. Both of them were lying, and both of them knew it. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Sergeant Do-hyun climbed out of a mining shuttle and looked at the rock that would be his home for the next 2 months. It was ugly. A potato-shaped chunk of iron and stone about 2 kilometers across. His job was to hollow it out and fill it with railguns. The plan was simple and brutal. Humanity could not match the alien fleet in space. They did not have enough ships, enough weapons, or enough experience. But they had asteroids, thousands of them. And inside each one, they could hide batteries of electromagnetic railguns, weapons that fired chunks of metal at a significant fraction of the speed of light. Primitive by galactic standards, devastating at close range. Do-hyun was 26, a combat engineer who had joined the military to pay for his education. He had expected to spend his career building bridges and clearing roads. Now, he was building humanity's first line of defense against an alien extermination fleet. And the only thing keeping him sane was his sense of humor and his squad of 12 engineers who trusted him completely. "Look on the bright side," he told them as they began drilling into the asteroid. "At least we do not have to worry about the commute." Nobody laughed, but a few of them smiled, and that was enough. Back on Outpost Hala, Taeho and Yuna worked without rest. They had become humanity's forward eyes and ears, tracking the approaching fleet and intercepting fragments of alien communication. The signals were encrypted and complex, but Yuna was patient and brilliant. And piece by piece, she began to decode the alien language. On day 31, she cracked her first complete sentence. She read it aloud to Taeho, and the words hung in the small room like poison. Sterilization of the native population is to be total. No seed stock is to remain. Taeho closed his eyes. He had suspected. They all had. But suspecting and knowing were different things. This was not an invasion. They were not coming to conquer or enslave. They were coming to erase. Every human being, every animal, every tree. They wanted Earth to be a dead rock. He transmitted the translation to Earth. Within hours, every news station on the planet carried the words. People read them on their phones, heard them on their radios, saw them on screens in every language. And the world did not break. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The last holdouts joined in. Countries that had been slow to commit threw everything they had into Project Bulwark. Protesters who had argued against militarization went quiet, not because they were silenced, but because they understood. A retired school teacher in Busan donated her savings to the defense fund. A teenager in Lagos wrote a program that improved targeting calculations by 3%. A fisherman in Norway volunteered for the asteroid mining crews because he knew how to work in cold, dark, dangerous places and was not afraid. 8 billion people decided together, without anyone making them, that they would not go quietly. On day 87, Seo-jun addressed the planet. He stood in a plain room with a single camera, wearing a simple dark suit. He did not raise his voice. He did not make grand gestures. He spoke like a man talking to his family. "They have told us what they intend," he said. "They intend to erase us, not because of what we have done, but because of what we might become. They looked at us and saw only danger." He paused, and the whole world held its breath. They were right to be afraid, but not for the reasons they think. 3 days later, the fleet arrived. 12,000 warships dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the edge of the solar system, and they expected to find a primitive species waiting to die. Admiral Vorin stood on the bridge of the Conviction and looked at his tactical display. What he saw did not make sense. The asteroid belt was alive. Thousands of heat signatures glowed among the rocks. Power sources, weapon systems, communication relays. Behind them, layered in defensive rings stretching back toward the inner planets, were hundreds of armed vessels. They were small. They were crude. Their technology was centuries behind the Concorde's weakest member. But there were so many of them, and they were arranged with a precision that made Vorin pause. And at the very front, alone, broadcasting on every frequency it could reach, was a single tiny station. Outpost Hala. Tejo stood at the communication console with his hands steady and his heart pounding. Yuna had helped him prepare the message in the Concorde's common language. It was imperfect, but the meaning was clear. "We know why you are here," Tejo transmitted. "We ask you to reconsider. We will defend ourselves." The message traveled across the dark and reached 12,000 ships. On most of those ships, officers listened and felt nothing. One more primitive species making noise before the end. But on the Conviction, Vorin heard it and felt something unexpected. A small, cold knot forming in his chest. They knew, somehow they knew, and they were still here. He pushed the feeling away. He had a duty. He gave the order to advance. The first wave was 200 light cruisers. They were fast, elegant ships designed to sweep aside early resistance. They activated their FTL drives for a short jump into the asteroid belt, expecting to arrive behind the human defensive line and destroy it from within. They never made it. The moment the cruisers entered FTL, Hana's tachyon disruptors fired. The weapons had been hidden inside asteroids, powered by reactors that humans had built in weeks using designs that should have taken years. The disruptors sent waves of energy that tore through faster-than-light fields like a knife through paper. 200 cruisers were ripped back into normal space, not where they intended to be, but inside kill zones that human engineers had carefully prepared. The railguns fired. Chunks of iron the size of cars, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, slammed into Concorde ships that had no shields raised and no weapons armed. They had expected to arrive in empty space. Instead, they arrived in a storm of metal. 43 cruisers were destroyed in the first 90 seconds. On his asteroid platform, Do-Hyun felt the vibration of his railgun battery through the rock beneath his feet. His targeting screen showed hits. His squad cheered. Then, the Concorde fired back. A beam of energy struck the asteroid 200 meters from his position. The rock cracked. Air vented from 3 compartments. 2 of his engineers died instantly. Do-Hyun grabbed a welding torch, sealed the nearest breach with his own hands, and kept his battery firing with 3 broken ribs and blood running down his face. "Keep shooting," he yelled at his squad. "They came a long way. Let us make it worth their trip." Across the belt, the battle turned into something the Concorde had never experienced. Human ships were slower, weaker, and less advanced. But they fought with a creativity that broke every tactical model in the Concorde's database. They used debris as cover. They hid behind destroyed ships and fired from the wreckage. They sent unmanned drones packed with explosives into Concorde formations. One human destroyer, its engines destroyed and its hull breaking apart, turned toward a Concorde carrier and accelerated. The crew had 3 minutes to reach the escape pods. Most of them made it. The destroyer hit the carrier at full speed, and the explosion consumed both ships. Admiral Vorin watched the tactical display with growing unease. His initial estimate had been 4 hours to clear the system. He revised it to 4 weeks. Then he watched a group of human fighters, ships no bigger than his personal shuttle, fly directly into the guns of a Concorde battleship to protect a damaged transport full of wounded. All 6 fighters were destroyed. The transport escaped. He revised his estimate to 4 months. The battle lasted 11 days. Both sides bled. Humanity lost dozens of stations, hundreds of ships, and thousands of lives. The Concorde lost over 1,000 vessels, more than they had lost in any single engagement in 3 centuries. The asteroid belt became a graveyard of twisted metal and frozen bodies from two different evolutionary paths. But humanity held. On Outpost Hala, Yuna picked up something unusual on day 9. A narrowband signal aimed directly at the station, using a frequency that was not part of any Concord military channel. Someone was trying to talk to them privately. It was Delegate Pell. His transmission was short and carried enormous risk. If the Concord discovered he was communicating with the enemy, he would be executed. He sent 3 things: the full translated text of Resolution 7701, a complete map of the Ninth Fleet's tactical positions, and a personal note. I voted against. I am sorry, it was not enough. Use this. Yuna decoded the package and brought it to Tejo. They read it together in silence. The tactical data was priceless. Positions, weapons capabilities, shield frequencies, communication networks. But it was the last piece of information that hit them hardest. The Ninth Fleet was just the beginning. If it failed, the Concord would send the Grand Armada. 200,000 ships. A force so large that nothing in the solar system would survive its arrival. Tejo sent everything to Director Sejun on Earth. The reply came back within the hour. Sejun had read the numbers. He understood what they meant. Defense alone would not save humanity. They could hold the Ninth Fleet. They could bleed it. But they could not survive what came next. Sejun called Dr. Hana into his office. She arrived exhausted, thin, with dark circles under her eyes and coffee stains on her lab coat. He showed her the intelligence. She read it, set it down, and stared at the wall for a full minute. "We need to go bigger," Sejun said. Hana looked at him with red-rimmed eyes and nodded slowly. "I have an idea," she said. "You are not going to like it." "I have not liked anything in 90 days, Sejun replied. "Tell me anyway." Hana's idea was insane. Sojun approved it in 40 minutes. The plan had 2 parts. The first was a strike mission targeting the Conviction, Admiral Voron's flagship. According to Pell's intelligence, the Conviction carried the fleet's quantum communication array, the only device capable of sending real-time messages back to the Concord homeworlds. Destroy it, and the Ninth Fleet would be cut off. No reinforcements, no orders, no Grand Armada. The second part was worse. Hana had been working on a theoretical device she called a tachyon resonance bomb. It did not just disrupt FTL drives. It created a cascading feedback wave that would destroy every tachyon-based system within the entire solar system. One detonation, and every FTL drive, every tachyon communicator, every faster-than-light sensor in range would burn out permanently. The Concord fleet would be trapped. No retreat, no escape. Every tachyon system humanity had built, including Hana's own disruptors, would also be destroyed. Humanity would be locking itself inside the cage with a wounded and angry enemy. No way out for anyone. Sejun looked at the plan for a long time. Then he said, "If we are going to die, they are staying to watch." He approved both operations. The strike mission was given a name, Project Dawn. The ship chosen to carry it out was the Rox Beck-2, the largest warship humanity had ever built. It was not elegant. It was a heavy cruiser made of thick armor and big engines, designed to take punishment and keep moving. Its crew of 1,200 was drawn from volunteers representing every nation on Earth. They knew what the mission was. They knew most of them would not come back. 1,200 people raised their hands anyway. Commander Minji was chosen to lead. She was 40 years old. Calm, in the way that deep water is calm. Still on the surface, powerful underneath. She had commanded ships in 3 different conflicts, and had never lost a vessel under her command. She knew this record was about to end. She handpicked her bridge crew carefully. Her communications officer was Lieutenant Wanjin, 24 years old and painfully young for what they were about to do. Wanjin spoke 3 languages and had spent the past 2 months teaching himself the Concorde's common tongue from Yuna's decoded transmissions. He was quiet, thoughtful, and carried a photograph of his younger sister in his breast pocket. The Baekdu launched on a Tuesday morning. Minji addressed her crew over the ship's intercom as they left Earth orbit. "I will not lie to you about what this is," she said. "The odds are not good. But odds have never been the thing that decides what humans do. And you are here, which means the decision is already made." The plan was brutally simple. The remaining human fleet, fewer than 300 ships, would launch a full assault on the Concorde's forward lines. Every ship, every weapon, everything humanity had left, thrown at the enemy in one massive push. In the chaos, the Baekdu would drive through the center of the Concorde formation and reach the Conviction. The Battle of Saturn began at dawn, Earth time. The human fleet hit the Concorde lines like a fist. Ships that had been hiding behind moons and in the rings of Saturn revealed themselves and fired everything they had. It was not subtle. It was not elegant. It was desperate, furious, and utterly human. The Concorde fought back hard. Human ships burned and broke. A destroyer named the Ulsan took a direct hit to its reactor and exploded with all hands. A frigate named the Jeju rammed a Concorde cruiser to protect a troop transport. The captain's last transmission was 2 words: "Keep going." In the asteroid belt, Do-hyun, now commanding his own rebuilt platform, provided covering fire until a Concorde beam sliced his railgun battery in half. He ordered his surviving crew into escape pods and launched them toward friendly ships. Then he sat alone in the ruined platform, watching the battle through a cracked viewport. He could see flashes of light in the distance. Each flash, a ship dying. Each ship carrying people he would never meet. The Baekdu pushed through. Minji drove her ship through the center of the battle with the focus of a surgeon. The Baekdu took hit after hit. Armor plating melted. Compartments vented into space. Crew members died at their stations and were replaced by the people standing behind them. The ship kept moving. As they closed on the Conviction, Wanjin opened a channel on the Concorde's military frequency. He had practiced this message 100 times. His voice was steady, though his hands were not. "Why did you fear us more than you tried to know us?" The message went out to every Concorde ship in range. Most ignored it. Some did not. On a Concorde frigate near the edge of the battle, a young officer heard the words and felt something shift inside him. A crack in a wall he did not know he had built. The Baekdu reached the Conviction. Voron's flagship was enormous. 5 kilometers of dark metal and advanced technology. The quantum communication array sat at the top of its central spire, a structure that looked like a needle made of light. Minji ordered all non-essential crew to the escape pods. 800 people left the ship. 400 stayed, the minimum needed to keep the Baekdu flying and fighting for the final approach. "Commander," Wanjin said from his station, "I am staying." Minji looked at him. He had his whole life ahead of him, or would have, if the galaxy had been kinder. She nodded. The Baekdu accelerated. The Conviction's defense batteries fired, and the human ship shuddered and burned, but it did not stop. Minji aimed for the communication spire with the precision of someone who had been preparing for this moment her entire life without knowing it. The impact was catastrophic. The Baekdu struck the spire at full speed, and Minji detonated the ship's reactor at the moment of contact. The explosion consumed both vessels in a ball of white light that was visible from Earth with the naked eye. The quantum communication array shattered. Across the solar system, every Concorde ship lost its link to home. The Ninth Fleet went dark. 3 seconds later, on Earth, Dr. Hana pressed a button. The tachyon resonance bomb detonated. It did not make a sound. Just a wave. Invisible. Unstoppable. that spread outward from Earth at the speed of light. Every tachyon-based system in the solar system died. FTL drives shut down and could not restart. Communication arrays burned out. Sensor networks went blind. The Concorde fleet was trapped. Humanity was trapped. No one was leaving. On the bridge of a secondary command ship, Admiral Vorin felt his FTL drive go dead beneath him. He checked his communication array. Dead. He checked his long-range sensors. Dead. For the first time in his career, he was alone. No orders from home. No guidance from the Parliament. No models to follow. He stood in the silence and felt something he had never felt before in any battle across any star system. The war did not end with a battle. It ended with a cup of water. After the tachyon bomb, both sides were broken. The Concorde had 6,000 ships still operational, but they were stranded. No FTL, no communication with home, no way to call for the Grand Armada. Humanity had fewer than 400 ships left, and was running out of everything. Missiles, food, oxygen, people. Weeks passed. Small fights continued. A skirmish near Jupiter. A brief exchange of fire in the debris fields of the asteroid belt. But the scale shrank every day. Both sides were tired in a way that went deeper than physical exhaustion. They were tired in their souls. Admiral Vorin sat alone in his quarters and studied the numbers. He could still win. 6,000 ships against 400. The math was simple. He could overwhelm Earth through sheer force. But he would lose half his fleet doing it. Maybe more. He would be stranded in an empty system with 3,000 damaged ships, no way home, and the knowledge that he had destroyed a species that had fought harder than anything the Concorde had ever faced. For the first time in his life, Vorin did not know what to do. He had always followed orders. He had always trusted the models. Now there were no orders, and the models had been wrong about everything. While Vorin hesitated, Delegate Pell made his choice. The Concorde's intelligence officers had suspected him since the Battle of the Belt. His communication logs had gaps. His behavior was unusual. When the quantum link went down, they moved to arrest him. Pell was faster. He took a small shuttle from the diplomatic bay and flew it straight toward the human lines, broadcasting his identity and his intentions on an open channel. I am Delegate Pell of the Galactic Concorde. I voted against Resolution 7701. I am requesting sanctuary. On Outpost Hala, Tejo and Yuna received the transmission. They looked at each other. Then Tejo opened the docking bay. Pell was the first alien to set foot on a human station. He was small, barely a meter tall, with smooth, wet skin that shifted between green and gray depending on his emotions. His eyes were large and dark, and they moved constantly, taking in everything. He was shaking. Yuna looked at this strange, frightened creature standing in the airlock of her station, and she did the most human thing she could think of. She got him a glass of water. Pell did not know what water was. His species absorbed moisture through their skin. Yuna showed him how to hold the glass, how to drink. He tasted it, and something in his expression changed, not because the water was special, but because the act of giving it was. He drank, and then he began to talk. Pell explained everything. The Concorde was not evil. It was afraid. In 4 billion years of galactic history, every aggressive species had followed the same pattern. Grow, expand, destroy, collapse. The Concorde had been formed specifically to prevent this cycle. When they found a species that showed signs of dangerous aggression, they eliminated it early. It was not cruelty, it was prevention, like cutting out a disease before it could spread. Humans broke their models because humans were impossible. They were aggressive and cooperative at the same time. They waged wars and then rebuilt what they had destroyed. They invented weapons, and then wrote poems about the horror of using them. They were capable of terrible cruelty and breathtaking kindness, sometimes in the same person, sometimes in the same hour. The Concord systems could not categorize them, and what the Concord could not categorize, it destroyed. Then he asked one question. What would change their minds? Pell was quiet for a long time. Something they have never seen, he said. An aggressive species that chooses mercy when it has every reason not to. Taeho sent Pell's words to Director Sojun. On Earth, Sojun read them in his office. He had not slept in 3 days. He had lost weight. His hair had gone completely white in the past 4 months. Around him, the Defense Council was arguing. We can destroy them, one general said. They are trapped. We finish this now. And then what? Another voice asked. The Concord sends the Grand Armada in a year, 2 years. We cannot hide. The argument went back and forth. Do-hyun, recovering from his injuries on a medical station, heard about it through military channels. His opinion was blunt. They came to wipe us out. Why should we show them anything? Sojun understood all of these positions. He felt the weight of every life lost, every ship destroyed, every family broken by this war that humanity had never asked for. The anger was justified. The desire for revenge was human. But so was something else. He opened a channel to Admiral Voron's command ship and broadcast a message that shocked both species. This is Director Sojun of the Earth Global Defense Council. We are offering an unconditional ceasefire and humanitarian aid to all damaged Concord vessels. Your wounded will be treated. Your ships will be given supplies. We ask nothing in return. Voron thought it was a trap. He waited 3 days. Then, a Concord destroyer on the edge of the fleet sent a distress signal. Its life support was failing. 400 crew members were slowly suffocating. Voron could not help them. His own ships were too damaged, too far away. A human medical frigate responded. It docked with the Concord destroyer, and human doctors walked onto an alien ship for the first time in history. The species inside were strange, some tall, some small, some with too many limbs, some with none. The human doctors did not care. They assessed injuries, administered what aid they could, and improvised solutions for alien biology they had never studied. They lost some patients. They saved others. A medic named Unji knelt beside a dying Kelani soldier. He was one of Voron's people, tall, armored, built for war. Now he was broken and fading, and his dark eyes were full of fear. Unji did not speak his language. She did not know his customs. She held his forelimb gently and hummed a lullaby, a song her grandmother had sung to her when she was small, because she did not know what else to do. The soldier died with his eyes closed and his grip soft. He died calm. A Concord officer recorded the moment and shared it across the fleet. 6,000 ships saw a human woman singing to their dying comrade. No one spoke for a long time after that. Voron requested a meeting. He came to Outpost Hala in full military dress, polished armor, rank insignia gleaming. Taeho met him in a rumpled uniform that had not been washed in a week. He was holding 2 cups. One held water. The other held a nutrient solution that Pell had taught them to prepare for Kelani biology. They sat across from each other in a small room with a window that looked out at the stars. Voron was silent for a long time. Then he asked the question that had been building inside him since the ceasefire offer. Why? We came to destroy you. Why would you help us? Taeho set the cup of nutrient solution in front of Voron. Because we could have destroyed you instead, he said. And we decided that what is possible should not always be what is chosen. He paused. You judged us by what we could become. We would rather be judged by what we choose to do. Voron looked at the cup. He looked at Taeho. He picked up the cup and drank. Then he transmitted a fleet-wide stand-down order. 1 year later, Dr. Hana's team, working alongside Concord engineers, restored the first FTL communication link. Delegate Pell used it to address the Concord Parliament. He presented his evidence, not just data and analysis, but footage, the medic singing, the ceasefire offer, the glass of water. The Concord voted again on Resolution 7701. This time, 2,407 voted to repeal it. 1,593 voted to keep it. It was not unanimous, it was not clean, but it was enough. On the day the Concord fleet began to leave the solar system, Tejo and Yuna stood at Outpost Hala's observation window and watched the ships go. They moved slowly, their engines still damaged, limping toward home. "Do you think it is really over?" Yuna asked. Tejo watched the last ships fade into the dark. He thought about Minji, who had given her life to break the communication array. He thought about Wanjin, who had asked the galaxy a question with his last breath. He thought about Dohyun, who now played cards every Thursday with a Concord Marine who had shot at him 4 months ago. He thought about Unji, humming a lullaby to a dying soldier from another world. "No," he said, "but the next part we get to write together." Outside the window, the stars were quiet, and for the first time in a long time, they did not look threatening. They looked like an invitation.